Hello everyone, this is Tet with Blades and Blasters coming with another tutorial. This is a Shadow of the Demon Lord system tutorial. We've done a character generation tutorial. Someone asked for this the other day, and I thought it would be a good idea to put one together. We're going to talk about two things. We're going to talk about the system in general and how it works, and we're also going to talk about combat. Things we're not going to talk about are some of the more intricate things like magic. I might do another system tutorial, a part 2, to talk about some of that stuff, but we're just going to talk about kind of the basics today. Okay, here I have a map, and I do want to take a moment to plug a project, and that is Forever Winter for Shadow of the Demon Lord. You will be able to find that link to that game below. This is a scenario from it. I'm not going to go through the whole thing, obviously, but this is one of the possible combat encounters. But before we get there, I want to talk about the basics of the system. Okay, we have two characters here and monster. Let's go ahead and go into Tulip's character sheet. There are well, before we go into exactly, the character itself, I want to show a couple examples of things. What you know from character generation is you generated all these statistics. That's fine. But what do they do? Well, it didn't really explain it, right? So if we look at her statistics here, you see she has a strength of 8, and you see this -2 down here. Okay? Your attributes are the bonuses and negatives that you get from your attribute scores, and any roll based on those attributes are based on how far away they are from 10. So if you have a 12, you get a +2, and if you have an 8, you get a -2, depending on what these are. The simple thing about Shadow of the Demon Lord is that your target number on challenge rolls is always a 10. So if you're doing a strength challenge roll and you roll that, and you have an 8 in strength, you see that she rolled an 8, or actually she rolled a 10 and then got a -2 because her strength is 8, right? And it's 2 less than 10, so she gets a -2, so she failed. Now, if you look at Will, on the other hand, she's a +2, so let's roll that. Okay, so perfect. She rolled a 10 and got +2, so she passed. So the target number for both of these rolls was 10. Doesn't matter what it was. So challenge rolls, that is really it. It's extremely simple. Extremely simple. Where it becomes interesting is what's called boons and banes. So boons and banes are essentially things that allow you to have some sort of modifier to your roll based on the circumstance. There are just a lot of these throughout Shadow of the Demon Lord, and is one of the biggest system things that you'll need to know. And like all talents, or not all talents, but a great many talents and a great many afflictions and so on, have a lot to do with boons and banes. Well, what's a boon and bane? Well, a boon and bane are d6s that are added or subtracted to your roll. Okay, so if you have a boon to a roll, you would roll your normal d20 and then roll a d6 and add it. And the opposite is true for bane. You roll d10 and then you subtract a d6. If you have multiple boons or banes, you roll all the d6s but only keep the highest. So if you have 2 boons, you roll a d20 and then you roll 2d6 but only keep the highest. And the same goes for a bane. So you don't add both of them, you just keep the highest always. And that's all boons and banes, and that's all your circumstantial difficulty usually is. It's that easy. And that's really the basics of the system that I wanted to talk about, just how that works. So we can do the basics of combat next. Okay, so here we have a 3 participant combat with 2 PCs and 1 NPC. The first thing any combat requires under normal circumstances is that everybody states if they're going to use a fast action or a slow action. The gist of it is that the PCs always go first and the NPCs always go second, or have the opportunity to. Fast turns go before long turns, however. So if you had one PC do a long turn, one PC do a short turn, and then the enemy do a short turn, all the short turns go first, with the PCs going first, then the NPCs, then the long turns, or slow turns I guess they're called, go after that, in that order. PC first, NPC, PC, NPC. So we have 3 people here. We have Tulip, who has a bow, so I'm going to set her as having a fast turn. That's notated by red. Kellyon has a axe, so he's actually going to do a blue turn because he's going to move. And then Icebound Dead is going to do a slow turn as well. So the fast turns would go first, which is only Tulip in this case. So Tulip is going to shoot. Okay, I have macros up here. She's going to shoot her bow. She has no boons or banes that is relevant. Now she does have a couple based on a talent. She has a trickery talent which lets her add a boon to her attack, but she rolled a 1. Her modifier is a +3 for agility, and then she only got a 1 on her boon. So she misses. How do I know she missed? Well, each thing, character, or beast has a defense score. Okay, so this thing's defense score is 16, therefore she missed by a wide margin. If its defense score was 5 somehow, she would hit, but did not. You notice that she rolled a 1. There's no critical hits or critical failures. What you will see, and it essentially becomes a critical hit, is there's some things that say on a 20 plus do something extra. They're usually in talents or spells or things like that, but a normal attack, it doesn't really matter. Now the slow turns go, PC first. So Kellyon, his speed is how far he can move. So with a slow turn, you can do a movement and an action. Okay, with a fast turn, you can just do an action or just do a move. So here he has a speed of 10. If we, so he can definitely get to where he needs to go. So he's going to move down here, 6 units, feet, or yards. Shadow the Demon Lord itself is yards. He moves and then he attacks. So he's going to attack with his axe. Let's see. Oh, a 25. So if you look at him, he's a warrior. So he gets a boon to his attacks. His strength is a 2. He rolled a 17. That means he rolled a 25. The Icebound Dead is has a defense of a 16, so that hits. So we're going to add 6 damage to the Icebound Dead. Okay. So it takes 6 damage there. So now, slow turn, the Icebound Dead is essentially still in slow, but it doesn't need to move, so it's just going to attack back. It's going to attack with its Ice Claws. 11. So he rolled a 1 plus 6, and it has a boon, so just an 11. That's, if we look at his defense, which is a 13, it's on the screen bubble, that's a miss. Okay, at this point we're at the end of the round. Okay, so if we're at the end of the round, everyone decides again, what are they going to do? Well, in this case, Tulip is probably going to stick with a fast, and these guys are probably going to go from slow to fast, because they don't need to move anymore. There's no reason why they would do that. So now Tulip and Kellyon will still go before the Icebound Dead, because everybody's now at fast. And we can continue on with this combat if we want. Just for an example, Tulip would shoot again. A 26 is definitely going to hit. I don't believe she has a talent that can benefit from that. We'll look at her talents real quick. No. She can re-roll a 1 on any roll. She didn't roll 1. So, I could have re-rolled earlier with one of her talents, but for Uncommon Courage, I believe, or Good Fortune. Yeah. So she hit, big hit, 8 damage is pretty good. She rolls 2d6 because Trickery gives her an extra d6 on her attack, so it's already worked in. It's a talent. There's a lot of talents in this game that will do things like that. So it gets hit for 8. Oh, it's up to 14. It is pretty hurt at this point. Kellyon now attacks. There's obviously more things you can do than just attack, but these are the main things. 12 is going to miss because its defense is 16. It's going to attack back with its ice claws. A 30. Whew, big hit. Now it didn't do much damage. It's going to do 3 damage to Kellyon there, but it does have talents that do actually impact that, what a roll that was. So we'll look at those talents. One of them is Winter's Grasp, and I'll just click it here so you can see it in the chat window. Whenever the Icebound Dead hits with its ice claws, the attack roll is 20 plus. The creature must make a strength challenge roll with 2 Banes. So the immediate thing we'll do is Kellyon's going to have to roll strength. He's going to have to take 2 Banes, which is a -2 on this, and we'll see what happens. He rolled a 9. He failed. Okay, so you can see in the equation here, see 13 is what he rolled. He has +2 for strength, and then his Bane is a -4 plus a -6. You can see the 4 is grayed out because it only keeps the highest, and he actually really got unlucky by rolling a 6 on that Bane, which really caused him to fail. Otherwise, he would have passed easily. So what happens now? On a failure, he becomes slowed for 1 minute. Slowed is a condition. I'm not going to go into exactly what that is, but he would be impacted by slowed. We'll give him a snail for that. Or we could, and we probably should, just since that was the end of the round, if we're going to play this out to conclusion, you need to know. So slow turn basically means he can only take slow turns, and his movement is halved. And he cannot benefit from increased speed. Alright, so Tulip's going to stay fast. He's going to have to go slow because he is now slowed, has a slow condition for 1 minute. And then the Icebound Dad's going to continue with his fast. So now you're going to see a little difference in the initiative, which is nice. So Tulip will go, then the Icebound Dad will go, because all fast turns go together. And then the slow turns go. So Kellyon would go last. So she's going to shoot again. Let's see if she's able to do anything with her bow. Oh, she hits again for 8 damage. She's really roughing this thing up. And she could use her Uncommon Courage to re-roll this boon. So if we re-roll the boon, now it really doesn't. I guess it doesn't matter in that case, because it just doesn't. 8 damage to the Icebound Dead, which destroys it. Okay, so that would take its damage from 14 to you can only hit the cap. You can't actually go past the maximum hit points of something, so it would go to 22, and that would kill it. Okay, and that's combat in Shadow of the Demon Lord, basically. When you get to magic, and I might do another tutorial to talk about that just a little bit, It's really context based on what the spell is. Okay, you're still doing the same things. Your spell is going to be based off some attribute. You're going to roll it, and it's going to be really contextual. Okay, some spells can just be cast without any roll. Some are against various attributes, as like the Winter's Grasp was against Kellyan's Strength. You can have that. You can have, that goes against their defense, it goes against their will, etc. So it's really not, that complicated. There is a table for how many castings you get of each spell of that level based on your power, which is the attribute that says you can cast spells. So if your power is 1, you're going to be able to cast a certain amount of 0 level spells, a certain amount of, I take that back. You're going to be able to cast any 0 level spell a certain amount of times. How many spells you have is depending on what your decisions are as you level, because you can either gain a new tradition or gain more spells in traditions so that's how you kind of become either a generalist or more specialized, is how you level. So that's really it. And I hope this was helpful for people who want to play Shadow the Demon Lord. I do recommend it. It's a great game, and it's fairly simple. In my opinion, the most complexity comes out of keeping track of all your talents, and potentially conditions like slowed. But otherwise, it's not overly complex, and it's a good, for me, game if you're looking for a D&D replacement. I think this is a really good one, especially if you're looking for dark fantasy. And I do really recommend Shadow the Demon Lord by Schwab Entertainment. And as I said, if you're looking for a lot of content for a winter type of scenario, Forever Winter by Earl of Fife Games is really an excellent source of that. You get 5 full adventure scenarios and 5 environmental encounters. So it's more of like just an encounter scenario, and then 5 new enemies and a couple character templates, which augment, adversaries. So, and that's 75 pages worth of stuff, and the link for that will be in the description. And I do appreciate everybody's support for Blades and Blasters. We're getting very close to 1,000 subscribers, and I hope this was helpful, and particularly to the person that asked for it and anybody else that sees it. So thank you guys so much, and I'll be here to answer any questions about Shadow the Demon Lord that you might have. There's several of us that are very, very knowledgeable about the system, particularly, even more so than me even. So if anybody has any questions, please ask. Happy to help where we can. And check out Forever Winter. Thanks, guys.